Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for attending. As a reminder, this event is recorded and will be part of the public record as part of our citizen participation plan. This is the community partners meeting on the State of Connecticut Department of Housing 2023-2024 Action Plan for Housing and Community Development. It is the plan that supports the 6 formula grants provided by the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development to the State of Connecticut Department of Housing. We will talk a little bit about that plan. I will throw the agenda up so everybody can see it. Opening or logistics we'll go over right now, followed by a discussion of the actual budget, quick run through on the housing priority highlights, and then we will be looking for your comments, input, etc. Once we've received any and all comments on the draft plan, if anyone has general questions, we can do that after the fact. What I would ask is, after I go through a short description of the budget and the priorities, that if you use the raise hand function in Teams, which you should find along the top bar on your screen, literally says raise. If you click it, it will raise your hand. You will actually come up in the chat in order in which you raise your hand. If you would, once you unmute yourself, please identify yourself and the organization you represent before you begin comments. Everyone will have the opportunity to input. Again, we're going to first take comments on the plan, and then if you have general questions, we can take them after. The other thing I want to throw out there is please keep yourself muted if you are not speaking, and be respectful. That's all we ask. We have a bunch of people still loading in, so we're going to take another minute or 3 to let people load in before we get started. So 1 more minute. Oh boy. Let me switch over to our first screen, which is budget. Again, as a reminder, you do come in muted. You will unmute yourself when directed to do so. And thank you again all for attending. My name is Michael Santoro. I'm the Director of Policy Research and Housing Support. The young lady you see is Laura Watson, who supports me in the planning functions at the department. Again, today's community roundtable is to talk about our pending action plan. What you see up is table 1, which is incorporated in the plan. I will be talking about, again, primarily the 6 formula grant programs provided to DOH by the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development. They are RHP, or Community Development Block Grant Recovery Housing Program. I'll describe that in a little more detail in a second. HOME, or the Home Investment Partnerships Program, CDBG Small Cities, and the National Housing Trust Fund. What you also see in this table are the state resources associated with those programs or activities. I won't go through all of those at this point in time. Descriptions are available in the plan and at the department's website. Table 2 are the anticipated state and federal funding associated with individual and family services. The 2 are the ones we are talking about today. ESG, or the Emergency Solutions Grant, and HOPWA, Housing Opportunities for Persons with AIDS. Finally, Table 3 briefly identifies the amount of low-income housing tax credits, 9% low-income housing tax credits that are allocated to the state of Connecticut and used in conjunction with our other programs to prepare for the creation and preservation of affordable housing and address homelessness across the state. Really quickly, RHP, the CDBG Community Development Block Grant Recovery Housing Program, is a bricks and mortar program targeted at creating recovery housing opportunities We're currently working on a pilot with the Department of Corrections and the Court Support Services Division of the Judicial Branch to provide housing opportunities for individuals coming out of institutionalized settings who also have a substance abuse problem. Home, again, primarily but not exclusively a bricks and mortar program. We intend to use it primarily for bricks and mortar. However, it can do some other related activities, tenant-based rental assistance, some community housing development organization capacity building as well. CDBG Small Cities, which I'm sure most of our community partners are familiar with, are grants to our smaller towns, about 139 of them here in the state of Connecticut, for community development related activities. It does not do new construction, but it can do housing preservation, both rental and ownership, and some limited personal service activities, public service. National Housing Trust Fund, again, that is a bricks and mortar program, but it is targeted at deep income targeted affordable housing, both new construction, substantial rehab, and preservation, targeting individuals and households at 30% of the area median income. ESG, the Emergency Solutions Grant, that is the federal program that we use to support our homeless shelter system, both in terms of the coordinated access network as well as the actual operation of the shelters and housing opportunities for persons with AIDS. We have a couple of properties here in the state of Connecticut that service that population group exclusively. We get just a small token, about $300,000 from the feds, supported by about $4 million in state resources. I am going to run through highlights of our intended activity for the coming year. I'm not going to read all of these. They're available in the plan. Just want to hit some of the highlights. You'll see the bolded headings. Those are the areas we're required to cover in our action plan relative to our HUD obligations. Um, uh, you will see many of them are focused on homeless prevention, or dealing with extremely low income population groups, but not exclusively. And we do intend to use these as actions over the coming year. So, actions taken during the program year to prevent homelessness. We're going to continue to prevent through a wide variety of efforts, specifically homeless outreach, the Security Deposit Guarantee Program, rapid rehousing, our shelter diversion program, which I'll talk in more detail about, supporting our coordinated access network, and the creation of permanent supportive housing opportunities. In addition, or in particular, our shelter diversion strategy is intended to prevent homelessness for people seeking shelter by helping them identify immediate alternative housing arrangements and connecting with services and assistance to help them to return to permanent housing quickly. Really, we believe diversion, that is to stop people from entering the homeless system, is the best weapon that we have in addressing and reducing homelessness here in the state. Steps that we will take to address emergency shelter and transitional housing needs. Nothing new here. We're going to continue to fund our emergency shelters as well as our youth transitional living programs. We're coordinating with DSS to improve or better coordinate services across the board, from day programs to food pantries and other state services and programs. We're going to also contractually require all of our emergency shelter and homeless youth programs to continue to support and enter data into HMIS, that federal homeless management information system that supports the coordinated access network to the point where it actually leads to us accessing greater amounts of federal dollars. I'll skip through most of this as it's kind of old. Again, we're going to reutilize the Recovery Housing Program, RHP, um, to support individuals in recovery from substance abuse on a path to self-sufficiency by providing stable but temporary housing. Temporary meaning up to 2 years. We're doing that in coordination with the Balance of State Continuum of Care, as well as the Opening Doors Fairfield County Continuum of Care and as I had mentioned earlier, the Court Support Services Division of the judicial branch. We're going to be targeting some assistance specifically to homeless subgroups or subpopulations, with an emphasis on those running through the Department of Mental Health and Addiction Services. We have a number of pilots that we're working with them on. We'll continue to do so. Skipping along here. We again intend to address obstacles to meeting underserved needs relative to housing through the investment of state and federal capital for projects that meet underserved needs as demonstrated through opportunity mapping. If you've been here before or seen the department's website, opportunity mapping identifies those communities that have the highest opportunity for improvement in individuals' lives, i.e., low levels of poverty, high employment, um, uh, good scores relative to education, um, as well as other demographic factors. We prepared in conjunction with CHFA this opportunity mapping that identifies and prioritizes communities for investment along those lines. And it is a priority, not an exclusion. We look for opportunities in high opportunity areas, but continue to support our low opportunity areas, which are predominantly our urban centers, specifically associated with preservation. We intend to continue to foster and maintain affordable housing, both through preservation and the increase of supply of quality affordable rental housing to low and moderate income households. We also are working to both preserve and increase the supply of quality, affordable, owner-occupied housing available to low and moderate income households. Many of you should be familiar with the new Time to Own initiative that has been very successful in increasing homeownership opportunities across the state. If the governor's budget is supported as proposed, we'll be investing $100 million over the next 2 years on that initiative. We'll be looking to eliminate barriers to the creation and opportunity for affordable housing through our recently published analysis of impediments to affordable housing. A series of action steps are highlighted both here in the plan as well as in the AI itself. I encourage you take a look at our AI if you have questions or on ways that you at your municipal or local level can address barriers to affordable housing production and creation. We intend to continue to work closely with you, our sister, our partner agencies, our community partners, as well as our state agency partners, to better coordinate and collaborate on investment. We also continue or intend to continue to prioritize and improve public housing and resident initiatives associated with that population group. Finally, we intend to continue to reduce the number of persons living below the poverty level through various activities under all 6 of these federal formula grant programs. Our detailed anti-poverty strategy is available in both this plan and in the state's 2Gen plan. Last but not least, these identified plans are linked in the action plan, and our specific action plan is drafted to support or be in coordination with these 5 other plans. On that, I will switch back over to the plan itself. We are now looking for comment on the draft plan, specifically about the 6 formula grant programs, although it does not have to be exclusively about those 6 formula grant programs, because we do talk about our other state resources in the plan. Again, if you have questions, we'll take them at the end. But if you have comments on our plan, what are we doing well? What are we not doing well? How can we do things better? Are there priorities you believe that we need to emphasize that either are not emphasized enough in the plan or can be reinforced? I also was remiss in not indicating we are currently in the middle of a 30-day public comment period. Means we are also taking written comment. So this is not your only opportunity to input on this draft plan. Any written comments received will also be forwarded to HUD as part of our application, and we welcome any written input. If you do have written comments, please send them to ct.housing.plans@ct.gov. Laura, if you could pop that email address in the chat, I would appreciate it. Again, ct.housing.plans@ct.gov. We will be happy to take any written comment. I believe we've got another 3 weeks where we'll be taking written comment. On that, I will now shut up because the primary function of today is for us to listen to what you have to say. If anybody has a comment, please use the raise your hand function uh, on the Teams bar at the top of the page. And we have our first. Please unmute, introduce yourself. Flavia, you're up. Flavia, you are up. Unmute yourself. There you go. And introduce yourself, please. We cannot hear you if you are talking. I see the little flashing sign, but we are not hearing you. Flavia, you are having some kind of a mic issue. Okay, she's going to comment in the chat. Thank you. Appreciate. Yeah, please. Also, if anyone doesn't want to speak but does have a comment that's brief, please put it in the chat. We will be happy to respond. Again, we will be taking questions after the comment period, after everybody has been given an opportunity to comment. Okay. So I'll flip over to the chat. And Flavia, whenever, just submit your comments. Thank you. And anybody else, please feel free again, submit your written comments to the email address that Laura put in the chat, ct.housing.plans at ct.gov. Anybody else? While we're waiting for Flavia to type her comments out. Anyone? You know, you can say good things about our plan too. Um, all right. Well, while we're waiting for Flavia to type out her comments, does anyone have questions about any of the 6 formula grant programs or any activities of the department? Oh, and Flavia's finally hit. Let's see what it says. It's a comment / question. Through my job here in the town of Windsor, I've noticed a need to pay attention to the effects of climate change on housing. Yes, absolutely, Flavia. We do talk about that in our plan. Climate change, I'll say it this way. Climate change is real. At the department, we recognize that we need to build more resilient, and a lot of our policies are targeted at that resilience, both in terms of lowering the carbon footprint of what we're building, but building in additional layers of energy efficiency, alternative energy sources, and over the coming months, we're going to be working closely with the Department of Energy and Environmental Protection on a number of initiatives that they have going, specifically targeted um, at improved energy efficiency and alternative sources of funding for those kinds of activities. Um, but absolutely, we recognize the need for our construction to be more resilient, not just in those areas that are potentially um, flood prone, but across the board. We need to recognize it's not just about flooding or potential flooding, but it is about overall resilience. So thank you, Flavia. Anybody else? Comments or questions at this point? Wow, this is going to be a short conversation. If you hang up or we get off this call and suddenly you realize you had a question or a comment, please use the link to the email address in the chat. Feel free to send your comments to myself and Laura at that email address. Flavia, what else? Here in Windsor, I've perceived it specifically in having more wet basement type issues. Okay. These are typically very costly and very few events. I've noticed there have been several homeowners struggling to recover. Absolutely. There are things that can be done, specifically using the Community Development Block Grant Small Cities Program. Communities like yours can apply for what is typically called homeowner rehab. And you could actually do a targeted homeowner rehab program specifically to address flood-prone issues, Flavia. If you have not engaged in conversations with our CDBG team, I encourage you to do so. They can talk to you about not just how CDBG works, but how you could craft a program specifically targeting those kinds of activities. Greg, Greg, thank you for the comment. Look into solar program for multifamily housing with Connecticut Green Grant. Programs available for affordable housing, low-income housing tax credit. Absolutely. What Greg is talking about, there are actually a couple of programs out there right now through DEEP, SCEF, and RES. More information will be coming out on both of those initiatives. And we will, in fact, be encouraging anyone looking for assistance through us and CHFA to talk about those kinds of activities and expanding the use of those programs, not just to do what was originally planned, but we're going to actually be looking to increase scope of activity relative to the use of solar and alternative energy systems. So thank you, Greg, for putting that on the table. Anybody has questions about those multifamily residential energy assistance type programs? You can visit the DEEP website, Department of Energy and Environmental Protection. We'll also be linking information from our website. I believe the Green Bank has information already linked at theirs. But we look forward to continuing the partnership both with DEEP and with Green Bank on those energy related initiatives. Greg, anything more you want to add?
No, Mike, I'm just glad that you, glad that you gave the appropriate shout out to DEEP as as being in the mix there, and DOH and CHAFA, everybody working together on that. So I think it's a great opportunity for the climate change question.
Oh, great, and thank you, Greg. Those you and those who don't know, Greg is with the Connecticut Fair Housing Center. Is your formal title now Executive Director, Greg?
Yeah.
Okay. Greg is the current Executive Director of Connecticut Fair Housing Center, and we look forward to continuing our very successful partnership with the Connecticut Fair Housing Center as well on a lot of these initiatives. But RES and SCEF are some real opportunities to look at alternative energy sources and alternative sources of funds to do energy related improvements to your facilities. Any other questions or comments, please? Don't be shy, gang. I know most of the folks on this call, and usually you're not this quiet. So please. Nothing. Everybody's okay with our plan. Right. By the way, we will take written support for our plan because HUD likes to see that too. All right. Well, barring any other comments or questions, I want to thank you all for your interest and your participation. Please take a look at the plan. I'll stop sharing now. Oh, Flavia, another quick comment. Highlight the importance of housing rehab program. Yes. Yes. Oh, thank you, Flavia. Yes. In case we didn't make it clear, housing preservation, not just affordable housing preservation, but housing preservation overall, is an important part of addressing the housing stock needs here in the state of Connecticut. I think most everybody knows we have a housing shortage, but also we have an aging housing stock. We have one of the oldest housing stocks in the country. And for those partners with us today who are with the municipalities, your participation and your support in those activities are critical to keeping what we have and not just moving the needle forward. And I see someone else has their hand up. Anne Marie, please introduce yourself and who you represent, and feel free.
Hi, everybody. Michael again, and the state of Connecticut CHFA. Thank you so much for having us make our comments and concerns known. I just wanted to comment again, and I know I was on the other call, but on the CDBG, it just seems to be coming up over and over again. If we could find a way to split that money so that it doesn't have to be just one use. I just think that I'm hearing about that more and more from everyone, that because it's a single use item and we're not maybe needing the full dollar amount for that one single use, but we have multiple uses. And I didn't know if I just wanted to make that known again. I'm sorry.
No, Anne Marie, no, don't say you're sorry, and I appreciate the comment both pre-draft and post-draft. I have passed that along to the community vulnerable block grant small cities folks. I've expressed the same concern myself over a number of years. I think their biggest issue in that regard is staff capacity, and we are working on expanding staff capacity. It is not part of this year's draft plan currently. I will reinforce that as thanks to your comment in particular, but to have them look at allowing a community to come in for more than one activity.
Right.
In a given year. I see it as a positive. It does limit the number of communities that can receive assistance in a given year. But by the same token, if we have a community which is effective in its use of CDBG, why shouldn't they benefit from having the opportunity to do more than one? Laura, you had a comment, please.
Yeah, I did speak with Dominic about this, one of our CDBG folks, and he said they already do that. So I don't know.
The community can apply for more than one activity.
Yes, he said they already do that. So
Okay.
I don't know if there's been a miscommunication or something, but
Okay.
he did say that.
So we will check and verify in the plan, but
Yeah.
also Anne Marie, get to your community. If you want to encourage them to apply for more than one activity in the current year, apparently it is allowed. And I know in particular, you are looking to do an activity on top of one that they are already seeking. So thank you. And Laura, thank you. Let's have a conversation with Miguel later in the week. Okay, just to confirm. Thanks. Anybody? Other comments, questions? All right, seeing and hearing none. I want to again thank everybody for your time and interest. Take a look through the action plan. It does talk about overall priorities of the department, and in particular is focused on those 6 federal formula grants, but it does also talk about what we're going to do with our invaluable state resources. And again, if the governor's budget is supported as proposed, we're going to be rolling out some serious dollars. Not that we aren't already, but even more serious after July 1st. We welcome your participation, your input, and your partnership. We've been doing this, believe it or not, the Department of Housing is now 10 years old again. And we're looking forward to continuing that collaboration and partnership with all of you. Thank you for your time. Thank you for your interest, and I look forward to any written comments you may have as well. Thanks again. Have a great afternoon.